James I, 1566 to 1625, reigned 1567, James VI of Scotland, James I of England and Ireland, 1603 to 1625. Introduction. James's first transactions. State of Europe. Ralegh's negotiations. Raleigh's conspiracy. Hampton Court Conference. A Parliament. Peace with Spain. 1603. The crown of England was never transmitted from father to son with greater tranquillity than it passed from the family of Tudor to that of Stewart. During the whole reign of Elizabeth, the eyes of men had been employed in search of her successor, and when old age made the prospect of her death more immediate, there appeared none but the King of Scots who could advance any just claim or pretension to the throne. He was great-grandson of Margaret, elder daughter of Henry VII, and on the failure of the male line, his hereditary right remained unquestionable. If the religion of Mary Queen of Scots and the other prejudices contracted against her had formed any considerable obstacle to her succession, these objections, being entirely personal, had no place with regard to her son. Men also considered that though the title, derived from blood, had been frequently violated since the Norman conquest, such licenses had proceeded more from force or intrigue than from any deliberate maxims of government. The lineal heir had still, in the end, prevailed, and both his exclusion and restoration had been commonly attended with such convulsions as were sufficient to warn all prudent men not lightly to give way to such irregularities. If the will of Henry VIII, authorized by Act of Parliament, had tacitly excluded the Scottish line, the tyranny and caprices of that monarch had been so signal that a settlement of this nature, unsupported by any just reason, had no authority with the people. Queen Elizabeth, too, with her dying breath, had recognized the undoubted title of her kinsman James, and the whole nation seemed to dispose themselves with joy and pleasure for his reception. Though born and educated amidst a foreign and hostile people, men hoped from his character of moderation and wisdom that he would embrace the maxims of an English monarch, and the prudent foresaw greater advantages resulting from a union with Scotland than disadvantages from submitting to a prince of that nation. The alacrity with which the English looked towards the successor had appeared so evident to Elizabeth that, concurring with other causes, it affected her with the deepest melancholy, and that wise princess, whose penetration and experience had given her the greatest insight into human affairs, had not yet sufficiently weighed the ingratitude of courtiers and levity of the people. First transactions of this reign. As victory abroad and tranquillity at home had attended this princess, she left the nation in such flourishing circumstances that her successor possessed every advantage, except that of comparison with her illustrious name, when he mounted the throne of England. The king's journey from Edinburgh to London immediately afforded to the inquisitive some circumstances of comparison, which even the natural partiality in favour of their new sovereign could not interpret to his advantage. As he passed along, all ranks of men flocked about him from every quarter, allured by interest or curiosity. Great were the rejoicings, and loud and hearty the acclamations which resounded from all sides, and every one could remember how the affability and popular manners of their queen displayed themselves amidst such concourse and exultation of her subjects. But James, though sociable and familiar with his friends and courtiers, hated the bustle of a mixed multitude, and though far from disliking flattery, yet was he still fonder of tranquillity and ease. He issued therefore a proclamation forbidding this resort of people, on pretence of the scarcity of provisions and other inconveniencies which he said would necessarily attend it. He was not, however, insensible to the great flow of affection which appeared in his new subjects, and being himself of an affectionate temper, he seems to have been in haste to make them some return of kindness and good offices. To this motive, probably we are to ascribe that profuseness of titles which was observed in the beginning of his reign, when in 6 weeks' time, after his entrance into the kingdom, he is computed to have bestowed knighthood on no less than 237 persons.